For 10 months, the world believed this sonar image captured 3 miles below the Pacific Ocean had finally solved aviation's greatest mystery. But when Tony Romeo's team returned with better cameras in November 2024, what they discovered wasn't Amelia Earhart's missing Lockheed Electra. It was an underwater rock formation. And the story of how elite ocean explorers made this mistake reveals far more about the search for Amelia Earhart than finding wreckage ever could. July 2nd, 1937. Amelia Earhart and navigator Fred Noonan took off from Lae, Papua New Guinea, attempting the longest and most dangerous leg of their around-the-world flight 2,556 miles across empty Pacific Ocean to Howland Island, a flat strip of coral barely 6,500 feet long. To put that in perspective, finding Howland from the air in 1937 was like trying to spot a credit card on a football field while flying overhead at 150 miles per hour. Except the football field is the Pacific Ocean. They never made it. Earhart's last radio transmission came through at 8:43 a.m. Her voice was strong, signal at maximum strength, but her coordinates were unclear. She couldn't see the island. She was circling, searching, running low on fuel. Then silence. No distress call. No mayday. Just the sudden absence of her voice. The U.S. Navy launched the most expensive search operation in American history at that time. 16 days, 9 ships, 66 aircraft, 250,000 square miles searched. They found nothing. On July 19th, 1937, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan were officially declared lost at sea. 87 years later, that silence has spawned more than a dozen theories. At least 40 expeditions, millions in search costs, and one persistent question: where did she go down? Enter Tony Romeo, former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer who sold his Charleston real estate company's assets to fund what he believed would be the definitive search. We're talking millions of dollars. His colleagues thought he'd lost his mind. But Romeo had become convinced that previous searches had been looking in slightly the wrong places with slightly outdated technology. He founded Deep Sea Vision, assembled a 16-member team, and secured access to the Kongsberg Huygens 6000, an autonomous underwater vehicle that can operate for 48 continuous hours at depths that would crush a nuclear submarine. In September 2023, his team set sail for the ocean near Howland Island. For 90 days, they ran continuous operations. The Huygens 6000 would descend 3 miles down and systematically scan the seafloor using sonar. Each dive created detailed acoustic maps. By the time they finished, they'd mapped an area roughly the size of Connecticut. 3 months into reviewing the data, Romeo's team spotted something. An object approximately 38 feet long, matching the dimensions of Earhart's Electra fuselage. The image showed what appeared to be dual vertical stabilizers, the Electra's distinctive twin-tail configuration. The location made perfect sense, about 90 miles west of Howland Island, and it was sitting at 16,400 feet below the surface, deeper than the Titanic. When Romeo announced the discovery on January 27, 2024, the response was immediate and global. Every major news outlet ran the story. And Romeo wasn't being reckless. He told the Today Show, "You'd be hard-pressed to convince me that's anything but an aircraft." But he also acknowledged to the Wall Street Journal, it could be her plane, but it also could be a rock. Even skeptical archaeologists took it seriously. Dorothy Cochran from the Smithsonian said she was hopeful. Underwater archaeologists reviewing the sonar images said it warranted investigation. This wasn't some crackpot theory. This was credible enough to justify a second expedition. So Romeo began planning the return trip. Better imaging equipment, closer passes, visual confirmation protocols. They departed in October 2024. 10 days of sailing just to reach the coordinates. The Huygens 6000 went down. this time programmed to pass directly over the target at much lower altitude for higher resolution scans. The data came back. The team processed it, and what those sharper images revealed was unambiguous. It wasn't an aircraft. It was a rock formation, a natural geological feature, shaped by millions of years into something that, from certain angles at lower resolution, looked exactly like what Romeo wanted to find. On November 6, 2024, Deep Sea Vision posted the update. The target believed to be Amelia Earhart's aircraft is not an aircraft, but a natural rock formation. Romeo's response was straightforward. "I'm super disappointed, but I guess that's life." Now, before we dismiss this as just a mistake, we need to understand why it happened. Because understanding the technology limitation reveals something important about deep-sea exploration. Sonar imaging works by emitting sound pulses toward the ocean floor. Those pulses bounce off whatever's down there and return to sensors. The system measures how long the sound took to return and how strong the signal is. That data gets processed into an image, but it's not a photograph. You're seeing a computer's interpretation of acoustic data. At 16,000 feet deep, the pressure is 7,000 pounds per square inch. The water is near freezing. There's no sunlight. Photons died out around 3,300 feet down. Traditional cameras are useless. Sonar is your only option. But sonar resolution is fundamentally limited by physics. During the first expedition, the Huygens 6000 was flying approximately 1,640 feet above the sea floor to cover maximum area. At that distance, you get broad coverage but relatively low detail. From that altitude, a smooth rock formation and a metal aircraft can return extremely similar signatures. Both are dense, solid objects with defined edges and angular features. Look at the January sonar image. You can absolutely convince yourself you're seeing an aircraft. There's a central body, roughly cylindrical, the right length. There are protrusions that could be twin-tail fins. The proportions aren't wildly off. Romeo's team wasn't being careless. They were following established archaeological methodology. You identify targets with broad surveys, then verify with higher resolution investigation. The second expedition did exactly that. The Huygens 6000 made multiple passes at much closer range, probably within 100 to 200 feet. The high-resolution scans revealed surface texture that was clearly geological, not manufactured. Irregular contours, inconsistent with aircraft construction. And most tellingly, when viewed from different angles, the aircraft-like appearance disappeared entirely. It only looked like a plane from that one specific viewpoint. It was rocks. Volcanic basalt, shaped by eons of tectonic activity and ocean currents into an unfortunate configuration. But here's where this gets interesting. Romeo's rock formation isn't unique in Earhart's search history. It's part of a pattern stretching back 87 years, promising leads that evaporate under scrutiny, evidence that seems compelling until it isn't. And to understand why this matters, you need to know the three major theories that have dominated the search. Theory 1. Crash and sink near Howland. This is the U.S. government's official position and what Romeo is testing. The logic is straightforward. Earhart's final transmissions got progressively stronger as she approached Howland, meaning she was getting closer. Her last words indicated low fuel. The simplest explanation: she ran out of fuel while searching for the island, ditched in the ocean, and the plane sank to depths of 15,000 to 17,000 feet. This theory is supported by Occam's razor. It fits the radio data. It requires the fewest assumptions. But the problem is, in 87 years of searching that area with improving technology, nobody has found wreckage. Theory 2. The Gardner Island castaway hypothesis, championed by Rick Gillespie and Tyhar. This theory says Earhart and Noonan, unable to find Howland, turned southeast and spotted Gardner Island, now called Nikumaroro, 350 nautical miles away. They landed on the reef flat during low tide. The plane stayed on the reef temporarily, allowing Earhart to transmit distress signals. And here's the fascinating part. Over 100 documented reports exist of radio operators across North America picking up distress signals in the days after Earhart disappeared. People in Texas, Florida, Canada reported hearing transmissions saying things like "water's high, can't hold on much longer. We have taken in water." One woman in Toronto heard a female voice saying "we are on a reef near an island." The theory continues. The plane was eventually washed off the reef and sank. Earhart and Noonan, now stranded on the uninhabited island, survived for some time before succumbing to exposure or starvation. Then, in 1940, a British colonial administrator found a partial skeleton on Gardner Island. The bones were measured, shipped to Fiji for analysis, identified as a European male, and then lost, just gone, vanished into bureaucratic incompetence before DNA testing existed. But in 1998, forensic anthropologists reanalyzed the original measurement data using modern techniques. Their conclusion: the bones were more consistent with a female of European ancestry, approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall, with limb proportions expected in someone physically active like an aviator. The measurements matched Earhart's estimated skeletal proportions. Tihar has conducted 12 expeditions to Nikumaroro since 1989. They've found artifacts: a woman's compact from the 1932, a jar that could have contained freckle cream, plexiglass matching Electra window dimensions. None definitive, all circumstantial. But piece by piece, Gillespie has built a case. The theory is compelling. It explains the radio signals, the bones, why wreckage wasn't found near Howland. But it requires several unproven things to be true. And despite 12 expeditions, Tihar has never found the plane itself. Theory 3. Japanese capture. This one's been largely debunked, but had its moment. It proposed Earhart ended up in Japanese-controlled Marshall Islands, was captured as a suspected spy, and either executed or secretly repatriated. In 2017, a photograph surfaced appearing to show someone matching Earhart's build on a dock in the Marshalls, with what looked like the Electra being towed by a Japanese ship. The History Channel devoted a 2-hour documentary to it. Then a blogger found the same photograph in a Japanese travelogue published in 1935, 2 years before Earhart disappeared. The theory collapsed. It was just a random photo of a random dock. This is the pattern. Promising evidence, credible researchers, significant investment, and then nothing, or not quite enough. The Earhart search has become a graveyard of almosts, which is exactly why Romeo's rock formation matters more than you'd think. Because here's what deep-sea vision actually accomplished. They definitively ruled out 7,700 square miles of the Pacific Ocean. That's an area larger than New Jersey, mapped with precision that didn't exist 5 years ago. Every rock formation cataloged, every anomaly investigated, every potential target eliminated. That's not failure. That's progress. Deep-sea archaeology is eliminatory work. You rule out what it's not until you find what it is. And the technology keeps advancing. The Huygens 6000 can operate for 48 continuous hours at depths unreachable a decade ago. It processes terabytes of sonar data, creating seafloor maps accurate to within meters. Compare that to the 1,937 search Navy ships dragging grappling hooks, pilots scanning the surface from biplanes, radio operators with equipment barely more sophisticated than ham radios. The 1,937 searchers covered 250,000 square miles, but were only looking at maybe the top 100 feet of water. Anything deeper was technologically invisible. Now we can map the ocean floor 3 miles down, identify objects the size of a car, and return to exact coordinates. Romeo's team is continuing the search. They've got more area to cover, better algorithms, and crucially, they now know what volcanic rock formations look like at 16,000 feet. Every mistake teaches you what not to see. Every ruled-out zone narrows where she could be. But this raises the question nobody wants to ask. What if we never find it? The Pacific Ocean covers 63 million square miles. Even narrowing the search to areas within Earhart's fuel range still leaves tens of thousands of square miles to examine. She could have been off course by 50 miles, 100 miles, even more. Navigation in 1937 relied on celestial readings with a sextant. Maps incorrectly placed Howland Island by several miles. Weather was uncooperative. And here's the thing, maybe finding the plane doesn't actually matter. Amelia Earhart's legacy isn't wreckage at the bottom of the Pacific. It's the altitude record she set. The 14,000 feet she climbed in 1922, becoming one of the first women to fly that high. It's the solo Atlantic crossing in 1932, nearly 16 hours from Newfoundland to Northern Ireland, making her the first woman to accomplish it alone. The flight nearly killed her. Ice on the wings, failed altimeter, flames shooting from the engine manifold. She landed in a farmer's field running on fumes and adrenaline. It's the 99s Club she helped found, female pilots supporting each other in an industry that told them to stay on the ground. An organization that still exists with more than 5,000 members worldwide. It's her advocacy for women in aviation, telling audiences, women must try to do things as men have tried. When they fail, their failure must be but a challenge to others. Her around-the-world attempt was meant to be the capstone. First woman to circumnavigate the globe at the equator, the longest route possible. She departed Miami on June 1937. 22,000 miles completed across multiple continents. Only 7,000 miles remained when she took off from Leh. She was 39 years old. At the peak of her fame, so close to completing something no woman had ever done. And then she vanished. Finding her plane would answer historical questions. It would tell us exactly where she went down, what went wrong, possibly what happened in those final moments. It would give closure. But it wouldn't change what she accomplished. It wouldn't diminish the barrier she broke or the example she set. The search for her plane has become, in a strange way, an extension of her legacy. Every expedition is refusing to let pioneering achievement disappear without acknowledgement. It's insisting that courage deserves answers. It's maintaining that the vast indifference of the ocean doesn't get to erase human accomplishment. Tony Romeo sold his company to fund this search. Rick Gillespie has devoted more than 30 years to the Gardner Island theory. Dozens of researchers have invested significant portions of their careers. Why? The plane itself isn't valuable. If found, it would be corroded wreckage, interesting to museums but not exactly treasure. Because mysteries about human achievement deserve resolution. Because Amelia Earhart was pioneering enough, brave enough, important enough that her disappearance feels unfinished. Because there's something unsatisfying about exceptional people vanishing without explanation. And maybe because the search itself is worthwhile. Every expedition maps more of the ocean floor. The deep ocean is genuinely less well-mapped than the surface of Mars. Every technological development driven by the search has applications to other underwater archaeology, to ocean science, to understanding our planet's least explored realm. Just this month, November 2024, the U.S. National Archives released newly declassified documents related to Earhart's disappearance. Naval records, diplomatic correspondence with Japan, radio transmission logs. 87 years later, we're still learning new details. Will we ever find the plane? Maybe. Technology continues advancing. Search areas continue being systematically eliminated. At some point, if the plane is findable, someone will probably find it. Or maybe the Pacific keeps this secret. Maybe the plane is too deep, too scattered, in a location no one has thought to search. Either way, the search continues. And maybe that's appropriate. Maybe Amelia Earhart, who spent her life pushing boundaries and refusing to accept that anything was impossible, deserves a mystery that refuses to be easily solved. Maybe the ongoing search is the most fitting tribute to someone who insisted on attempting the extraordinary when everyone said it couldn't be done. Because here's what Tony Romeo's rock formation actually proved. We haven't given up. 87 years later, we're still looking. We're still investing resources, still developing technology, still refusing to accept that pioneering achievement simply vanishes without explanation. The object at 16,400 feet wasn't her plane. But the fact that someone sailed halfway around the world, spent months at sea, invested millions of dollars to check whether it might be tells you something about human nature, almost as interesting as finding the wreckage would have been. We don't forget pioneers. We don't let mysteries die. We keep searching, keep questioning, keep pushing boundaries in pursuit of answers, just like Earhart kept pushing the boundaries of aviation. The search for Amelia Earhart has become its own form of aviation history. Every failed expedition teaches the next searchers what doesn't work. Every ruled-out location narrows the search area. Every technological improvement brings us incrementally closer to capabilities that would have seemed impossible in 1937. Somewhere in the Pacific, between Leh and Howland, there might be wreckage we haven't seen yet. Or there might not be. But either way, we'll keep looking. Because that's what Amelia Earhart would have done. She wouldn't have given up. She wouldn't have accepted impossible. She would have kept flying, kept pushing, kept attempting the extraordinary. So, Tony Romeo's rock formation isn't a failure. It's one more data point, one more eliminated location, one more piece of the vast puzzle of where Amelia Earhart isn't, which brings us marginally closer to where she is. The mystery endures. The search continues. And somewhere out there, 3 miles below the Pacific Ocean, Amelia Earhart's story waits to be finished.